Hey guys, in this video I'm going to get into what a Python variable is and what it does. So if you're ready, let's do this. So let's start off with the question, what is a variable? Well, to answer the question, we need to understand a bit about programming. Every program deals with a bit of data and information, otherwise it would be useless. Since every program deals with data, it needs a place to store that data somewhere. It can be stored in files or databases, but when a program is using the data is stored in a data object called a variable. These variables hold single values and can be changed at any instance in a program. That's why they're called variables, because the data that they contain can be changed at any moment by a program. So these variables hold the data until it is ready to be used by the program. Variables are the essential building blocks to programming. Without variables, there wouldn't actually be a reason to program because there would be no way to hold, modify, and store the data. So in short, a variable is a data object that holds a single value that can be changed. So now that we know what a variable is, let's go figure out how to create one using Python. Hey guys, I'm back here on my desktop computer and I'm ready to show you how to create a variable in Python. So the first thing you want to do is open up your IDE, and if you don't know what that is, that's an integrated development environment, and if you still don't know what that is, well, I have a video in the description below that will show you how to set up an IDE and explains what it is. But right now, I want you to go set up your IDE, and you should have Python installed on your computer. Otherwise, go check out the Python installation on how to install Python. I have a link in the description below. But you should have Python installed, and you should have an IDE. So if you're ready, let's do this. So open up your IDE, which mine's Visual Studio Code, by the way. So open that up. And with Visual Studio Code, it just asks, do I want to create a new file? And I'll do yes. Otherwise, if you use something else like Sublime Text or PyCharm, you can just create a new file however you do that. So I'm going to create a Python file. And to create a Python file, it just has to have a .py at the end of it, and that's a Python file. Text files are .txt, but Python files are .py. So I'm going to just call this my variable.py, and I'm going to save this to my desktop. My format will be Python, and there we go. We can save this. And now we have made a Python file. Okay, that's a good start right now. So now we're going to learn how to create a variable in Python. So now creating a variable in Python is quite simple actually. It's very simple. All you really have to do is find a name for your variable. So I'm going to call this Silas after myself. Silas. And so that's the name of my variable. And now, right now it's saying that Silas is not defined, and that's correct. It is not defined. Right now, Python, or my editor actually, my IDE, is saying Silas is not defined, and that's because we haven't assigned it to anything. It does not know what Silas is. So now we're saying Silas equals, because we're assigning it to something, we're defining the variable, equals, and now I have a red squiggle. Let's full screen this. Now I have a red squiggle, which means now I have an error, and it's saying right here, expected expression to the right of the equal sign, which is saying, hey, I'm expecting something. Put something in the variable. So I'm going to just go put something into the variable, which will be hello. You can name your variable whatever you want, remember. You could type in whatever name. But right now we have made a variable. Actually, I'm going to change this to my variable. And I'm going to make this be Silas. So that's what's holding. My variable equals Silas, me. Now another thing you need to know in Python is how to print things to the terminal. With Visual Studio Code, that's very simple. All you have to do is press this triangle right here and it will run the terminal. But if you don't have something like that, definitely if you're using Sublime Text, you will not have that whatsoever. So for that, you would have to go to the top and then do terminal. Then you would have to go onto find your file, so you're going to have to navigate to your file. So that would be CD. Since I'm on a Mac, if you're using Windows, it's completely different, I think, but don't quote me on that. CD, desktop. Oh, I haven't done this for a while. And now I'm in my desktop, and now I can finally run Python 3 dot, I don't know, Python 3 variable dot py. Something like that. There we go. So it ran. And so now, right now, now we need to print something to the terminal. So how do you do that in Python? And it's a fundamental skill, I must say. So you have to know how to print something to the terminal. So all you have to do is type in the name, print, which is pretty simple. Now you put a right. Oh, well, Visual Studio Code does that for me. But you put 2 parentheses, a left one and a right one. And here, this is the print function. It will print whatever to the terminal. Now I want to print what I have in my variable. So all I have to do is get my variable and put it right between the 2 parentheses, like that. And there, I should see what I have in my variable. So if I print it to the terminal, it says Silas right there. And if I run that again, after I clean that, Silas right there. So that's what it's printing. It's printing Silas, and that's exactly what I have in my variable. And if you're not using that, how you would do that is just navigate to your folder or where you have stored the file, and you just run Python 3 and the name of the script or a Python file, my variable.py, and you should still see the same thing right there, Silas, or whatever you have in your variable. So there you go. My variable equals Silas, print my variable. Now let's try something else. Let's say I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. What should happen there? What do you expect is going to happen? Well, if I run it, I get exactly what I have in my variable. Now let's try something else. I have my variable equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Then I change it to Silas. Let's move that here. And now, what should be in my variable? Well, let's see. If I run it, make sure you know your answer. If I run it, I have Silas, and that's because it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, but now I changed it to Silas. So now in my variable it's Silas, and that's why it's printing out Silas, which makes sense. So that's practically all there is to variables. It's not too much. Remember, it only holds 1 value, so that's kind of it. I can't do anything more with it. But I'm going to want you to do this. Okay, so I'm back here, and here's the exercise or the challenge I want you to do. I want you to create a variable called myVariable, and then I want you to set it to Python 3, so make sure it has Python 3, and then I want you to print it to the terminal. That's kind of it. It should be pretty simple, but remember, this is your first time, so just follow. If you need to go back and look at what we did before, that's fine. Just complete the challenge and then come back after. Okay? So if you did that correctly, you should know and have expected that, but if you didn't, that's still fine. So now I'm just going to show you how to quickly do that. So first thing we want to do is create a variable, and I said call it my variable. So do that, and we want to set my variable to Python 3. So equals, and I should have told you can't put Python 3 like that. It has to be between quotation marks, otherwise it won't work. And then print it to the terminal. So print my variable, and that, and if you guessed, you should know what you're going to expect, Python 3. And if you're using something else, just run it again, Python 3 myVariable.py or whatever you named your script, and Python 3 still comes out. So that's it for variables. Not too much. They're pretty simple, but they're very powerful in any programming language, and you really need them a lot. And in Python, also not just a variable, but you have to know how to print to the terminal. Otherwise, when we have much larger Python files and things start to go wrong, which they always do, you really need to understand like what's in your variable, what's making an error here, and how to fix it. And printing to the terminal is really essential because let's say, for example, I thought this was Python 3, but it keeps, whenever I do something like this, so I'm saying right now if my variable equals Python 3, then print, yes, it does equal Python 3. And I expect it to say, oh yeah, it equals Python 3. So I run it, and let's see that. Nothing happens. I'm saying, wait, I should see it saying it equals Python 3. So I keep running it, and nothing happens. But that's because my variable does not equal Python 3. It does not have Python 3 in it. Instead, it has this weird junk. So what I would want to do here, so that's why it's very useful to print to the terminal. Because now, I could say, oh, my variable does not have Python 3. Instead, it has DJKDJL. And I say, okay, that's not what I want. So now I can go set it to Python 3. And now, if I do that, I should see, yes, it does equal Python 3. And I say, much better. But this is a simple example, so that's kind of obvious. But much larger Python files, you're not setting the variable usually. Usually you're getting the data from like a file, or it's randomized, like a randomized number generator, stuff like that. It's usually not you who sets the variable. So the lesson for today is know how to set a variable and know how to print it to the terminal. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope this tutorial helped you.